day, a beautiful evening, and the only thing I can imagine is anything is beautiful has to be something but God's made. And I think if we start early in the Bible, we find that to be very true. And so we just thank Him and praise Him. I think the last time I did this, last month I assume, was we kind of attempted to cover Revelation 17, which was the false religion beginning in Babel, just a generation or two after Noah's flood, and even looked at some of the conditions that we see going on right today, still coming from that area of time and, of course, the Bible. So hopefully we got something out of that. 17 and chapter 18, and if you want to, you can turn to chapter 18 tonight. And they kind of mashed together because the one world order, the one world government, and the one world religion has played a part with a combination of each, a benefit of each of these elements. But the governments has used religion to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. And how you're turning there, I had a couple notes here on a little bit of a letter that I have. I don't know how many of you is familiar or maybe even take Friends of Israel magazine and follow their programs and supporting Israel and more than just that, trying to evangelize that area. And this is, I thought, very timely to what's going on, and they have a clear picture than what I normally would have or what we can get out of the secular press. Starts out, and this is from Jim Showers, the director. Millions of people would agree we live in an uncertain world, particularly when it comes to Israel. Given the number of forces working against that tiny Jewish state, it might seem a country that doesn't have any future at all. Iran recently backed up its almost daily oath to obliviate Israel when it launched a barrage of missiles designed to demonstrate its capability to destroy all the U.S. bases in that area of the region, along with the entire Jewish state. And in a matter of minutes, such an attack could conceivably kill 6 million Israelites and at least 1 million Palestinians in one swoop. The Israel Defense Force reports that since Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip, and that was in 2005, more than 8,000 rockets has been fired into Israel's towns and villages. In 2011 alone, there were 627 rockets from the Gaza hit Israel towns, and they're aimed primarily at schools, kindergartens, and homes. Many Israelites are being injured, and most children in these rocketed areas are now suffering from trauma. Regarding Egypt, almost no news is good news when we turn into that part of it. The new President Mohammed Morsi is a member of the radical Muslim Brotherhood, which is quickly gaining control of the country. Indicative of the developing turmoil was a June assault on vehicles carrying Israeli workers on one of the border fences, or the border between Israel and Egypt. The attackers crossed into Israel from Sinai. One Israelite was killed following the attack. Rockets were fired from the Sinai into southern Israel, raising concerns about both the security of Israel Israel's border with Egypt and the survival of the 1979 peace accord has been the longest lasting of any peace treaty that we've had there in the Middle East since '79, and it's on, of course, the treading water now. Made by the late Egyptian President Awad Sadan and maintained by the President Barak. And of course, we can always say, well, we kind of played a part in trying to get rid of Iraq too. And of course, this is the conditions in the name of democracy that exists. To make matters worse, the UN Human Rights Council passed 5 more anti-Israel resolutions condemning a nation that holds perhaps the best human rights record on the planet. Yet the Council criticized Israel for everything from the so-called oppression of the Palestinians to defending itself while under terrorist attacks. Furthermore, another resolution denies Israel's basic rights to self-defense. For good measure, the Council created a mission to investigate Israel's housing in the West Bank, and that's of course Jordan, Samaria, and Jerusalem. Although these events seem bad enough, is the future as uncertain as it sounds? You and I know the answer to that question, don't we? For Israel, the answer is no, it is not as bad as it sounds. Because in fact, Israel is the one nation whose future is assured by God Himself in Jeremiah chapter 31, 35 through 37. From the time our sovereign Creator brought the Hebrew nation into being through Abraham and the Jewish people and charted the course of Israel's history, Satan has conspired to undo the divine program. The psalmist wrote of Israel's enemies who said, "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more." So even as bad as things get, and the letter goes on, has a lot of good information in it, but I thought it might just give us a little look of what's going on in the world, and as bad as we are in this country, give you a little picture of what Israel puts up with daily in there. And of course, are surrounded with arch enemies, about 27 nations to one little teeny part of Israel, 6-7 million people, and God is, maintaining His control over Israel that He promised.
I seen today, watching the news there, that Israel, they was passing out masks, gas masks to their, did you ever see that? And each of the government was providing that for a lot of people. And now Egypt is under that brotherhood of
Muslim
brotherhood.
Yeah, which the treaty's just rocking, probably
absolutely. And today too, that same newscast was kind of touching. I was eating lunch and just turned it on there. But this lady on there was showing what was going on in Syria. And the government's bombing those people. Showed this one little boy, just a baby. And she started crying when she said she couldn't get, kind of got really teared up in the news. See, well, I tell you, there's a lot of turmoil going on over there.
In that whole Middle East, and for that matter, the whole world. We're seeing a lot of it right here in this country daily. And from my lifetime, I can't hardly imagine how fast these things that we've been studying are coming together.
You can't imagine living under that threat, can you?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I kind of grew up, and some of us did, I'm sure, under the Cold War. And at the time when I was young, people was building bomb shelters, and compared to what Israel's going through, that was a piece of cake. But but we don't. Well, if you get turned there to chapter 18 of Revelations, and this is a really good study in this area. There's a good bit, but I have more questions than I got answers, so I don't even know that I'm the one that should be up here this evening, because there is some of these things are a little bit hard to understand. And I have emphasized, I think, in the last time or two, that we not only look at the scriptures for future developments that was prophesied, but through most of them, we can that has been fulfilled, we can look and discern from history the actual, whether it was a theory to start with, the actual happenings of history that tells us this part of it is true. And that is extremely true in Daniel's forecast of the future beast that was going to rule the earth, which he names Thor and Division. And he left the two off that started. So even last month we talked about at least 7, or at least touched them. I'm not sure, but we got it all cleared up. But we might touch on that just a little bit again this evening in that part of it. But anyway, chapter 18, and this is, and after these things, after the things that John just saw about the destruction of that false religion, and just to give you a little bit of a picture as to where these stand together, the false religion was started clear back in Babylon. The Antichrist coming on the scene with confirming a covenant with Israel, of course, used religion, just like Hitler did in Germany, or quite a few people in history, and the Satanistic nature has used religion to accomplish him coming to power. And this is exactly what happened when the Antichrist starts this coming to power, which would be the last 7 years as we know planet Earth. And of course, that's at the middle of that, so we're talking 7 years from the end. Chapter 18 is going to be in the latter part of the last few months of the destruction of Babylon itself. So even though these two chapters, and John was taken up and given the vision to look at history, look at the future, and know exactly what was going to happen. But at any rate, there are at least 3.5 years or more span of time between 17 and 18 chapters here in Revelations. And after these things, after we've got a picture of the false religion, another angel came down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and it is became a habitation of devils, and hold of every foul spirit and cage, and every clean and hateful bird. For all nations have drank of the wine of her wrath, of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another angel from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not her plagues. Now this is, I'm sure, Christians, possibly even Jews, but is either converted or has their name written in the book of life to come out of this city before the plagues, or I would probably say you could substitute the plagues there with the day of the Lord. And if you remember, we spent a lot of time dividing Revelations into them three categories. Beginning of sorrow, the great tribulation, and the day of God's wrath, or the day of the Lord. And that starts with the trumpet judgments. So we could even say these plagues are going to be the judgment of God, starting with the trumpet judgments. For her sins have reached into heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. And just like He did, if you remember, when the sins of Babylon, we studied, when we started this study, reached to the heavens, and God came down to look and see if this is exactly what was going on, and you know how He judged Babylon. Okay, so this would be a reference. Verse 6, and reward her even as she has rewarded you, and double unto her the double according to her works in the cup which she hath filled to her double. In other words, twice as much as what she's done. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow given her, for she saith in her heart, I sat as queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning, famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lamentate for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. This is going to be quick, isn't it? And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. And the merchandise of gold, silver, and precious stones, and pearls, fine linen, purple, and silk, and scarlet, and all fine wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory, and all manner of vessels of most precious wood, and brass, and iron, and marble. So it sounds like a world achievement in accomplishing this type of standard. In fact, it even kind of sounds something like the United States to me. And cinnamon and odors and ornaments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and even the souls of men. So Babylon is going to maintain slaves and the souls of men. And the fruit that thy soul lusteth after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and godly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. And the merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off, the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to nothing. And every shipmaster and all the company and ships and sailors and as many as trade by the sea stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto that great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had the ships in the sea by the reasons of their costliness or wealth. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over her, but thou heavens, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. You remember the saints that was murdered in, I believe it was the fourth seal, and they're crying to God, to judge and avenge those that had did this. And being in heaven, they could still see on earth and knew that this judgment hadn't came. This, in this sense, is at least a partial answer to those prayers that we heard under the altar in heaven. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, cast it into the sea, saying, "Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of the harps and musicians and pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of the candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. All the merchants were the great men of the earth, for by the sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets and saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth." And so this is God cleansing the earth that comes at the latter part of that 7-year period that we've been studying about. And this destruction is so great. Now, these some things here that I would probably ask you questions about. And some of it we covered last time, but even just look how we're on here, the very last verse of chapter 17, because Babylon can stand for this great city that was repeated several times. Babylon can stand for this false religion. And this is where I get a little bit without as good understanding as I'd like. If I was going to teach it, so I might give you some theories on it, but kind of gives some idea of what might be going on. But this very last verse of even chapter 17, and the woman that was the harlot, the prostitute, the false religion, which thou sawest, is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So it can be referred to as the false religion or Babylon, this great city. And even in carrying that maybe even a step farther, I would ask just where that city is, or where would, or what does it represent? Just the earth itself? Does it represent the United States? Is it really Babylon in Iraq that we're all familiar with, especially after the war? Some of this doesn't really fit those plans. Is it Rome, Italy, as I've been taught probably from the times I've been studying prophecy for quite some time? Mostly that was brought about by, and we could look at just a dab of this, but it could be brought about by Rome. We know even in the prophet Daniel wrote that the prince that shall come destroyed the city and the sanctuary. So this revised version, and if we give them beasts of Daniel, and so all of this kind of has got to match together. The beasts, in fact, last month we talked about at least 7. And the beasts are kingdoms on this earth. And they start with Egypt. They start at Syria. We're up to Babylon. Daniel picks up Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, revised Rome. Now that's the way I've always been taught it. And the reason it comes from these areas is very simply, and it makes a lot of sense, because whoever destroyed the temple in 70 AD is the one that's going to bring this other prince, the Antichrist, back to this earth, and he's going to pick up and rule the whole earth this time. So if we look at it like that, and this is what makes it make sense, but that would be wrong, because Rome was ruling when Jesus was here. This great temple, Herod remodeled and built the temple, and we know Rome destroyed it. Well, I did a lot of, internal search on some of these subjects, and especially in the light of what we see going on in the Middle East today. And as you go through that list that I just mentioned, these beasts, do you notice one thing that stands out? Every one of these people, with the exception of Rome, and over half of it was, and is still going in that direction, are Muslims, ain't they? Egypt, Assyria, Babylon. Greece would probably be the minor part of it, but it's mostly today. And then even all of the eastern part of Rome. So it leads me to kind of look a little farther, when we're talking about this prince, the destruction of Babylon, just who is the Antichrist? And this is maybe a whole new subject, and maybe we'll pick up on that the next time. But this is what makes it seem like that Rome has been right and I've been taught right. And now more and more, and even some of our early Christians, like Martin Luther and some of that group, didn't really think it was wrong. They really thought that it was a Muslim nation, which of course was ruling and reigning heavy at the Ottoman Empire, controlled the whole Middle East. And you can take these pieces and fit them back in history to the point that there was one part of Rome. There was 10 different, and I want to get this straight for you, if I can. There is the legions of God. Go ahead.
Do you think in the 18th chapter, in the 17th chapter, do you think the religious or the false religious or one world religious system is kind of destroyed by the political element of that Babylon?
Yeah, in chapter.
In 17.
Yeah, in 17 it says, and the timing on that is pretty clear.
10 horn.
Yeah, that which is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Really, after he's came to power, but that.
Do you think that one world, you said you talked about it last time, that one world false religious system, is that going to be even Christians and Muslims together, or will?
Well, if you're calling it Christian, per se, but just by name, I'll say yes. They're going to come together. And this is part of the clay and iron of the pose of the statue.
You just wonder what they'll be called.
We've got some names. Chrislam, but people's already entitled to this name. Mm-hmm.
You need a combination of those Christians.
Right.
I didn't even know what that was until this summer.
Yeah.
Carol's brothers told me about it. He told me who was involved in getting it started. I thought, hello. Oh, my goodness. Crazy.
So do you think then in 18 it's a literal city, or is it a political element? This mystery or Babylon the Great is called.
We just read, quite a few times, and we didn't pick up near all of the scriptures that refers to it as that great city.
So it'll be a city, but there's still.
But it's also a political system. Yeah, but it is one world,
So
see,
is it going to
too,
be a center that the rest of the world will be?
coming toward. Well, let me just give you a couple, real quick theories on this. And I still didn't find a place to look at it. I don't know how I did that, but at any rate, I want to say where we got all this from Rome is the fact that there was 4 different Roman legions that conquered Jerusalem in 70 AD. The one that, and I'll say this off the top of my head because I had my notes somewhere, but the one that actually tore down the wall was Titus, and we all are familiar with history, but Titus was the one that led that regiment. And he's the one that actually physically tore down the walls and tore the stones apart and used heat and melted the gold and took the gold. Okay, now this says, it makes it sound real easy, then this has got to be wrong. But when you break it down, a thing that kind of got me concerned about is in reading Daniel, there in 9, I think it's 27, and we're running out of time, so I won't go look it up. But it says that, it words that in talking about this, the prophet Daniel wrote, the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The people of this prince. Okay, so, normally you just say, if you're just going to refer to Rome, you'd say, the Roman Empire. The people of this 10th region that I just told you about was all Assyria, or modern day Turkey, Iraq, Pakistan, Syria. That whole regiment was made up of that. So this pinpoints, but it's a people of this that is going to take it and rule. So this is one element or part, but we kind of got to get cleared up when you go into just who the Antichrist is and where does he come from. Now we know Rome ruled the world, but we also know that a big lot of this theology comes from the Pope and this area of the Catholic religion, because they are also a country and has an ambassador and play a pretty major part in world religion. But as we get into this study just a little more, and we're going to get into much of it tonight, let me just give you a few things to think about. And I think I've already brought up one. Do some more study on chapter 9 of Daniel, there on 9:27, the people of the prince. And then, of course, you've got to go to history to get Titus and the regiments, but that's pretty well documented by all historians. So this is one area that needs just who is these people. We know, and we might look at the scripture or add to it in chapter 13, which is the Antichrist and him and his cohorts taking control of the whole earth, and even every person taking this mark in order to buy, sell, or trade. So we can relate these kind of back to that same area. Which another part that I would give you is, see, some people think we're going to rebuild Babylon. It's going to be this great city. Well, that sounds good. It'd take a good bit of time. Last I heard was like maybe 35 years, even in complete cooperation from everybody to build it into that kind of major city, controlling the whole world. There's some other problems with that, even though this says that great city, Babylon. It is the people, once it's destroyed and burned, we just read, are standing on their ships afar off, watching it burn, and man made over the city. And everybody had these universal shipping lines is flowing to and from that city. Well, it depends on where you go into Babylon at, whether it's Babylon or Nineveh. You're either going to go in with either the Tigris River or the Euphrates River, right? Now, these are both big, strong rivers, but they're nothing but can take the kind of ships we're talking about. You can take small ships in there for short distances with some weight. So this, how are you going to have all these people wailing over Babylon if it is a rebuilt city and it's all the shipping industry? So that's, some of the problems that I've ran into in trying to determine just where we're talking about. These other theories that could be wrong, like I say, we kind of covered that by the political aspects and we've always blamed the Catholics maybe for this false religion. I would like to steer you, give you some ideas, like I just mentioned there, this Titus, when he tore down the sanctuary, he did it with Muslims. Almost all these countries that we've talked about is today Muslim or becoming their faith. So the other place that I might mention that you look some, and there's one city I can think of, and a lot of people have tried to use it, is New York City. I mean, now it has the ocean, it has the capacity, it's a world trade center of the world right now. It is also the most targeted city, the only one that all these Muslims give the right arm to completely tear down, as we experienced in 9/11. And so we know that New York is full of evil. God's saying, come out of them before I destroy it. We know there's even 5 million plus Jews living in New York City. So I kind of, say, and I'm not being dull, I'm just giving you some things to look at so you can help me get out of this dilemma that I'm kind of in. But as we put more scriptures together, see more history come together, why, I'm sure it'll clear up. There's no doubt about the first 6 beasts of Daniel, where it is mentioned in chapter 17 of Revelation. The question I got is Muslim, and even this person with all this power is said to have had a head wound but appeared completely dead, and he came to life. Now, is this one of those beasts, which they're all operative today, every one of these that we're talking about? They almost, the Muslim nations was almost wiped out completely during, the 1400s. And today, they're revived again and taken over the world just like it had never been destroyed. So is that the wound to the head and came back alive, and everyone's astonished at their power? And they have all the cruelty, and the toes and the leg, arm and clay. Even they don't even mix themselves. The Sunnis can't stand the Shiites and vice versa. They're willing to give their life for them causes, even among themselves. So I'm going to leave it off here and before we take up too much of your time, and give you plenty of time till I do it the next time and we'll see if we can pick up from here and go. Is there questions or have you, I mean, how is your answers? I'll put it that way. You guys have a question? Yeah, we can, we can get near all the scriptures. Yeah, it's going to be covered with water. And several years ago, I did a theory and a study before I even hardly knew what tsunamis was, and got the elevation of Babylon and said a good tsunami. That earthquake at the seventh judgment divides the whole city of Israel. Could create that kind of a tsunami that would cover it in 1 hour. We know this from Indonesia when it went in there and destroyed thousands of people.
Mentioned New York City.
Yeah,
New York's one of the most vulnerable cities for a major hurricane in America. People don't know that. Cover it with water. You get a good hurricane in there, it's going to devastate New York City.
and the people.
And the people. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
anyway, just a thought.
yeah, and we know the world system, and that's why I started this study clear back at Babel. And just another thought, and we'll say a prayer if there's no more comments, but every one of those beasts that we read about in chapter 17 or in Daniel, the 7 beasts, every one of them is still here today, just like God said they would be. If you remember Nebuchadnezzar's statue, that he got through all these beasts through Rome, what we thought was wrong. I'm not sure now. But what we thought was wrong, and then this huge rock, not made by hands, come out of this great mountain and destroyed every one of them beasts with one swoop. So they was all here when this happens. And every one of them countries we're talking about is still here on earth and was just took over by another one and maintained their country and status and statute. So there's another area to think about. We know those beasts are still alive today, and almost every one of them is must. If that helps. Well, we better get out of here, or Jean won't let me do this anymore, and Jim will send her a thank you card. Father, thank you for loving us and being our Savior and just giving us your word, and we know that some parts of it is when we have to depend on our history and when it was accomplished, and some of it is real clear. We know your word is completely true. It's going to happen exactly like you said it was, and in your timing and in your plan. And so just help us to take this message to a lost and dying world that seems to have her head buried in the sand, and even some of our churches that they'd be awakened to the day that we live in, and given the urgency to take this message to the ones that need it. Just guide us through this evening and give us the wisdom and understanding of your word as we endeavor to accept the truth that you gave us. We ask all this in your name, Jesus. Amen. Thanks everyone for coming tonight.